Alright, I teased this thing like over a month ago and it kind of fell by the wayside. Sorry about that, but it is finally here. I will finally officially reveal the new bike, the new build. And here it is. It's a Ruckus. Actually, this is only partially a Ruckus, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. You probably might have seen a video from another YouTuber, Kent from East Coastish, with a similar Ruckus build. He and I are kind of doing Ruckuses at the same time, going at it with a different approach, as you could probably see here, and we will see in more detail later on. We're going to put these together as kind of like a unofficial ruck-off. My goal, and it sounds like it's Kent's goal as well, is to get this ready for Riderzblok, the big annual ride down here in San Diego from our friends at Riderzblok. Mike and Chaz always put on a great show every year, and I would love to get this thing ready and revealed by the time that ride comes around. Before we get into showing you kind of like the ins and outs of this thing and what I plan to do, a little bit of what I've already done, I wanted to share just a little bit about my buying experience with this bike, because it was interesting, that's for sure. I was looking, just kind of browsing through the motorcycle section, and I always had in the back of my head that I wanted to do a Ruckus build. I know everyone does Ruckus builds, they're very popular, but they're just so unique and cool. I mean, what other kind of scooter do you see out there that looks like this? I saw a Ruckus for sale for $1,000, and it was marked from $2,000 down to $1,000. So I was like, wow, that's a huge jump. $1,000 for this thing, especially in this market, that's a steal. The description did say it wasn't starting. He said that some guy came up and messed with it, and then as a result it wouldn't start. He said the starter was gone, but I wasn't so sure about that. I did a little bit of research, and based on what he said as well, it sounded like the problem was actually the electronic fuel pump with Ruckuses. Apparently that's a common fault. Knowing that, I was totally in. I was going to buy this thing, but then I started to get to know the seller and the seller's girlfriend or wife or whoever she was. They were a very unique couple, I will say that. I don't know if they were stimulated by anything, but I wouldn't be surprised either. Anything I said, she was very suspicious of. I admit that one of the things that I did forget to do is bring cash with me when I was going to buy this thing. I just kind of assumed ignorantly that they might have Venmo or PayPal or something. She gave me this look like, what kind of angle are you trying to pull on me here? And I'm like, come on, I'm trying to give you cash, whatever. So the next day I come back bringing cash and ready to get this thing. And I did have a brief look on the first day about the paperwork. They did have everything, so that was another thing I was kind of worried about. However, I looked at it a little bit closer when I was about to go through with everything and just about to give them the cash, and I realized that the title was for someone named David. David was not the guy, and David was certainly not the girl that owned the bike, but it was signed. So what happened was she bought the bike from said David, but never put a title in her own name. And I think this was out of ignorance, if I'm honest. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt here, but I'm pretty sure they didn't realize that just because they have the title doesn't mean that it's technically theirs. They didn't turn it into the DMV, get it transferred so that they can get a new title with their name in it. The David guy had an address that was local, and they only bought it 2 months prior, so maybe we can work out a deal where I get in contact with this guy and we can set up a paper trail that shows David sold it to this lady who sold it to me. The lady was not having it. She thought I was trying to pull a fast one on her. Maybe I was being a little bit too shrewd in my negotiations. They would have to turn this thing in regardless whether or not I bought this thing, and was asking them to take a couple $100 off the price, because that's probably what they would be paying with title transfer fees and registration and sales tax. She was not having it. She said, nope, $1,000, take it or leave it. I don't care. I don't think what you're saying is correct. I have the title, it's mine. This is my scooter. I'm trying to sell it to you, all this stuff. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. But at that point, I was just done with it. I'm like, throwing my hands up in the air. I said, I'm done, I'm out. No, I'm not taking this for $1,000 anymore. I'm out, goodbye. So then I went home scooterless, and then as I was scrolling through my phone that night, I found another scooter, another Ruckus for sale, this one for $1,000. And let me tell you, that seller experience was the complete opposite. The dude was super informative. He was straight up, basically was honest with me and said that this thing has been sitting for a year plus, and just that this really hasn't been touched and haven't been given the proper TLC. He always thought maybe he'd go back to it and fix it up again, but never got to it. And then it just kind of, you know, sat in the back of his yard and deteriorated. So I decided to take it off of him and see what I can do with it. So let me show you a little bit closer detail exactly what I'm talking about here, and just kind of the uniqueness about this, and the well, the rough exterior, we'll call it, that we need to work with here in order to get it perfect. Let's do a walk around here, handheld style. This is kind of like the old Benelli video. Time flies, doesn't it? So let's look at this in a little bit more detail. Now, one of the first things I want to point out here is this, the engine. So I mentioned that this is, for the most part, a Honda Ruckus, but not really. And the reason why is it's engine swapped here with something very unique, I think, a Yamaha Riva 180. You don't see too many Riva 180 builds. I don't think I've ever seen one, to be honest. I mean, everyone does the GY6, but there's also other very popular builds like a Zuma 125 or a Helix 250 even. But I don't think I've seen any Riva 180s. It actually has some pretty weird qualities to it. It's very short in the front, but extremely stubby, as you can probably tell here. And it has some unique features, like right here, you can see it sticks out a little bit. This is actually like a full clutch, like you would see in a multi-speed motorcycle. As unique as it is, it's in very rough shape, as you can probably tell. Things are quite rusty and things are just very disorganized, kind of cobbled together at the moment. So a lot of organization, a lot of cleanup is in order here. I've done a little bit already. All this stuff, the intake, the fueling, that stuff has all been addressed, and you'll see that in a future video. But everything else, like the wiring here, is kind of cobbled together. Also, the back frame here was clearly customized and welded specifically for this engine, but in the spots that it was welded, you can tell it is very rusty. A lot of that to be cleaned up here, especially up in the front. Underneath here is a huge cobweb of really tangled spaghetti. It needs to be completely organized, and just making sure that everything is there and that it all works electronically. The front end here as well is in pretty rough shape. It's kind of a cobbled together mess, really, of OEM parts and then I guess custom parts. I'm pretty sure that this shock is OEM. It has a tab on the outside though. I'm pretty sure that should have been inside for the drum brake and for the speedo, but you can see clearly they welded on a custom bracket, which is now been painted orange. No, that's not orange, that's rust. Handlebars are pretty interesting in themselves because this is connected with, I'm pretty sure this is a mountain bike stem. It does not fit very well. In fact, if you stand and just hold the front tire with your legs like this, look how much movement is there. That's confidence inspiring. So the game plan is to get all of this stuff addressed. As I said, I've already tackled the fueling, so it does start, it does run, it rides. But now we have to clean it up even further. So the next process, I think, will be the wiring. I want to get that all cleaned up and just kind of looked at, make sure that there's nothing that's redundant that needs to be there, anything like that, and that I get everything in perfect working order. Then I want to address the front end here completely, from the handlebars all the way down. Basically it needs to be replaced, so I have all the parts over there ready to go. Then after that, I want to get the engine refreshed. I think here is actually the saving grace of this bike. The engine's actually in pretty good shape and it does run pretty nicely, but it really needs to be cleaned up. It is clearly seen some better days. And then we'll have a perfectly running custom Ruckus, but we're not going to stop there. I think this is a unique build, at least with the engine, and so I want to showcase that. So this is all going to be stripped down all the way down to the frame and then powder coated, painted, and built up from there. So I have some ideas already as far as paint schemes, color schemes. I actually have a theme build in mind too that I might actually do, and I'm really excited about it because I don't think I've seen anyone do that before. There you have it. We're going to dub this thing the Yonda Rivkus. I think that's pretty appropriate for it being a Honda Ruckus and a Yamaha Riva. Yonda Rivkus. Next time you see this bike, we're going to actually try to get it started, and let me tell you, it was quite the process. It took weeks and a lot of headaches. So look forward to that next week.